Well, hello. It's the A to Z podcast. Zach Jackson, Andre Knott, at Akron Jackson, at Dre Knott on most of your favorite social media platforms. At Facebook.com/A to Z podcast, A to Z podcast.com. Thank you guys for listening, for tweeting, for all you do. Thanks to Scene, thanks to Honeymoon Grill, thanks to American Fireworks. They're always open in Hudson. They're always open online at AmericanFireworks.com. And you need to go there now. Why? Because the Browns have signed Jadeveon Clowney. The Super Bowl parade is only 9 months away. 10 months. Bad public school math. Sorry.
You a fool. Damn fool. We ain't been back in a while. We apologize. These seasons, they mess with us. It's different. I got to admit, baseball season is way different this year. And maybe I'm just getting old.
Well, I got to say that, definitely that's part of it. And draft season is different for me, too. I would say this. I watched the game last night, most of it, not every pitch, probably just the same as you. But if it wasn't for the Clowney thing becoming official, I probably would have led with Shane Bieber because that was damn impressive.
Damn impressive is right. I mean, he's at an unbelievable – I don't think – and you know what? And I'm part of this. When you're inside the bubble, it's sometimes hard, and I don't mean the bubble of like the COVID bubble. I mean just in the bubble of covering someone or covering a season or covering a player. Sometimes it's hard to take yourself outside of the bubble and see historically where you're at and what you're watching. This is my 7th season doing this job with the TV stuff with the Indians, and I've been blessed to see Corey Kluber probably at his finest. I've seen some performances out of guys like Carlos Carrasco, Mike Clevenger, Trevor Bauer. You guys all know the names. And I'm not putting one over the other. But what Shane Bieber has done in such a short amount of time, in such a short part of his career, I don't know if there's – I mean, every time we post a number about him or every time we get into the 5th, 6th inning of a game, Zach, we're sitting there and we're putting his numbers up against Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson and like just names that, that are Hall of Famers, first ballot Hall of Famers, guys that when you put their names in the same category, you're talking about the best of the best. He's still 25 years old, man, and I know last year he wins the Cy Young Award, and it's only a 6-game season, and it's only against the American League and National League Central, and I can hear all that stuff, but he's doing the same shit a year later now, and I, this is the one thing I'll give him, and I've given this to Tristan McKenzie, and Tristan McKenzie hasn't gotten as far as Shane. I've been lucky enough to know him basically since they've been drafted, and they haven't changed as a person at all. And you and I have both been around a lot of athletes that have been drafted. We've been around a lot of college athletes, and we've watched them, like Josh Cribbs, pretty much the same dude we've known since we knew him at Kent State. But those guys, and look, with maturity, with everything that comes with life, immaturity, money, lack of money, girlfriends, wives, lollygaggers that stay on and pull you down. There's a lot of things that can change who people are. Shane could change, but he hasn't. And to me, the best story I can give, and then we can get into Jadeveon Clowney and that parade you were talking about. But he goes out and he wins he was like a late add-on to be on the All-Star team a couple years back when it was here in Cleveland. He wins the All-Star MVP award because he strikes out the side. All of his boys had one of the best weeks ever, and were hungover until probably until like August. Trust me, I was one of them. And he never changed him, man. He gets the truck, from Chevy for winning the MVP. He gets, he didn't soup it up. He didn't give it to anybody. He drives it. he didn't, he was like, yeah, I got to pay taxes on it, whatever. But he was so laid back about it. He goes out last year. He wins, every award you can win, wins the Cy Young and everything else. And literally like a week and a half, 2 weeks after all that happens, he's like, I'm over it. And not in an arrogant, cocky way, but in a way of, okay, how can I get better? And he goes out and he reaches out to one of the pitching gurus that helped Lucas Giolito, who we watched him go against yesterday, who kind of helped Lucas Giolito change his game. And he goes, I want a better slider. And he went out and he's got one of the best sliders in baseball. While guys are trying to copy his curveball and guys are trying to copy the things he's doing, he hasn't just rested on, I'm the best pitcher in baseball. He's gone out and made himself better. And I don't know how much better he can make himself. And I don't know what this means going forward for the Indians. But I will tell you guys this, and I know this doesn't mean very much to most because most of you guys are smarter than you even know yourselves. I just read your Twitter accounts. But he's one of the people that keeps telling me keep telling people to think we're not good enough, and we're going to go out and I'm going to keep kicking people's ass, and I'm going to get us as close as we can get.
Well,
That loss to the Yankees last year in the playoffs pissed them off and motivated him to get back to that situation and try to shove it on them and anybody else if he gets back to the playoffs. That's what I love about Shane Bieber.
Well, I texted Josh Cribbs Monday night at 8 o'clock, and he'll get back to me 2 Fridays from now at noon. So you're right, he hasn't changed a bit in all that time.
Did you tell him that he stopped doing that? Did he know it was your punk ass that called, though?
Yes, I made that clear. That's okay. No, listen, I mean, I'm just watching on TV, and unfortunately you were too in this one, but the way the ball moves when Shane Bieber wants it to move, I don't know shit about baseball, right? Like, it's not supposed to do that. And, like,
right.
These are major league hitters, right? And the other guy threw a damn good game too, but the ball didn't move for him that way, and he was also incredible.
Oh, he without Shane Bieber, it would be an AL. He'd be an AL Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah.
I mean, he's that good, and he's reinvented himself. This is the new age of pitching, man, and baseball's at a crossroads a little bit. Of you've let these guys not only with these unbelievable physical abilities, Zach, but now they have the ability with all these pitching gurus. The Trevor Bauers of the world, we gave a lot of love to for the drive line stuff. But there's not just drive line. There's places all across America, in Texas and Florida, California, that all have all these great computers and all these readouts. And they have found the middle ground of physically finding what guys can do and tunneling pitches off of what they do well. And now you're seeing all these young gurus become pitching coaches. This is a crazy time in baseball because pitching is so far ahead of hitting right now that I literally think that we're getting to a point where there's going to be some rules made you're going to have to make rules better for hitting because the pitchers are beyond where the hitters are right now with how they're able to manipulate the ball, with how they're able to use these computers to figure out spin rates and all this other stuff that's way above the public school education that you got and most of the one that I got. We're in a cool period of time for pitchers. Like we did a thing last night. Giolito, who was like a top pick, first-round pick, after he had the worst ERA, worst baseball pitcher in baseball in 2018, goes out and changes his whole motion and goes right back to being one of the best pitchers. Their pitching coach for the Chicago White Sox was his manager in high school in California. And they had John Flaherty and they had Max Fried and they had him on the same team. They're all number ones in the big leagues right now. Like, that guy did such a good job with his high school team. Coach Borman, listen, he did such a good job with a high school team a decade ago. He's now a Major League Baseball pitching coach. And you have these guys all over the place in baseball. It amazes me how many young, smart, professional baseball coaches don't look like what they used to look like at all. And
I got several friends that think it's a cool time in baseball because they just bet the under on the Indians every night and they're like 10-2 for the year.
Shit, you can do that in most of baseball. Think about. Hang on,
no. It got hairy in the Bieber Giolito game because of the extra inning rule. I mean, the Indians
right.
were 1 inch from having a 6-run 10th inning.
Right. Well, and that's
didn't have 6 hits all night between the two teams.
Right, and that's we're talking about Indians games, and I hear people bitch about it. Hello, that's baseball. Period.
Yeah.
And the Indians are third. The Indians are third in home runs coming into the night, but they're like the third worst scoring team in baseball. Like, it's a weird game right now, and I know people bitch and moan about the Indians and the Dolans, and that's fine. But I'll give Terry Francona, Chris Antonetti, in this. 9 times out of 10, no matter what the other team is making, it's a competitive series, no matter who they play.
Yeah, I mean, look, through the whole thing, I've said this. The Indians can pitch, and, that's a lot of baseball, right? And it's a long season. So maybe they can add to the bats. Maybe they've got one in waiting, right? Or 2. They might need 3 or 4. But still, the point is,
right.
It's a long season, and when you pitch the way they pitched, they pitch as in active, you have a chance. So a couple things I chuckled at from the Clowney Zoom today and all that. It wasn't really a surprise. I mean, as soon as he was coming back for a second visit, you knew as long as he passed the physical, it was going to happen, right?
Which is a big deal.
Which is a big deal and arguably the biggest deal, and we'll get to that. But he said, if I play 16 games, I can still be that. Well, we play 17 now. And that's going to be a big deal. Because, look, I understand, and I feel this vibe with Browns fans. There's almost more excitement for the schedule release than the draft, just because it's been so long. You're used to, there's no drama for the 26th pick. I mean, you might get a starter. You hope you get a good player. It's still important, but there's not arguments going on about this guy or this guy, and the pick's not going to be made until 11:15 that night, right? You have no control over the first 25 picks. But when it comes to that, adding the 17th game without a bye week was a big mistake by the Players Association, and it has potential to lessen the quality of the product. And listen, if your team's year goes bad, your team's year goes bad. Your quarterback gets hurt in October, or 10 starters go on IR or whatever. That's not going to change, but it's going to be worse. And if you're a good team like the Browns, it really doesn't matter how your schedule gets stacked this year, any year, 1981, right? In terms of when you play the teams, because you make do. That way you get ready, right? But if your bye week is on October 12th and you're trying to play till February, that's going to be really hard. It's going to be really challenging.
The Players Association. Let me just say something real quick. The Players Association, they got no power, man. They've already signed up the deal. Their deal is done. They don't have any power once they signed that deal last year. They'd had to know 17 games was coming, and I almost said 18 games because at some point it will be 18 because the owners will continue to be greedy and give as much money as they could. That's something they should have negotiated a year ago when DeMorris signed that.
No, they had the chance to. They blew it. They blew it.
That's what I'm saying. It was way too late. It's past due. As soon as they signed that, they ain't got no say in what's going to happen with this.
But, look, if Clowney's healthy or healthy for 12 games, right, or mostly healthy for somewhere between 8 to 18 to 21 games, you got a good player. And there's different ways you can debate different questions. We might have some. I'll just say this. This is what it's supposed to look like. I mean, there's not many Myles Garretts walking the earth that are 265 or 268 and can bend and jump like he does and break rims in the offseason for fun and jump boxes at 48 inches and all of that. What Clowney looks like, what Myles looks like when you get stables of those, you're into something. And now whether it's the first-round pick or the second-round pick, you can add another 21-year-old guy who doesn't quite look like those guys do, but he runs and jumps like those guys do or did when they were 19, 20, 21, right? And in a couple of years in the weight room will look that way. And I just think it's not only that, because obviously you don't win championships off beauty contests, but going back to the J.J. Watt thing, Dre, they were showing you, A, we think that we're there and we can go for it, but B, we want to have the option to move either Myles or Clowney inside, put them together on the same side, move them around the formation, and if we can do a good job stopping the run, and Clowney should help that, and get you in 3rd and 8, in 3rd and 12, we're going to pick our matchups, and we're going to come after you, and we're going to help the secondary that way, no doubt. That's what the
great teams do. I mean, it's about versatility, and the way I get what you're calculating. I'll calculate it this way: I don't need to see Clowney on the field till November, because I don't care what he does in September. I don't care what he does in October. Really, you need him healthy when you make a playoff run, especially with this longer season. If you have a 60% Clowney in November, December, then But to me, you work his number, and I don't want to be tentative with him. You got it, right? And you want to play him. I get that. But I don't need over 25 snaps, 30 snaps from him in September per game. You want to be able to get to the playoffs. You want to be able to get to the stretch drive, after Thanksgiving, where you can get 40, 45 decent snaps out of him, where the tax and all these other guys, because it comes down to what can I – and last year I thought Adrian Claiborne was great in the amount of snaps that they gave him, right? They gave him enough snaps that he wasn't overexposed, but he was able to put pressure on in the small amount of snaps that he has. Jadeveon Clowney's knees are banged up. You said something that I think is more important than anything else. It's not sexy to talk about run defense and talking about keeping the outside shoulder. And as one of the sayings of this podcast, when we really, really first start going was set the edge.
Set the fucking edge.
Set the fucking edge. And I meant that shit. And I still do mean it, because that's what football comes down to. If you can't set the edge, you got no chance. Mm-hmm. Now when you have, when you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers or whomever, and it's December 15th, and it's 20 degrees, and the wind is blowing at 20 miles an hour from, through the dog pound or whatever else, and on 3rd and 3, they've got to probably run the football, or they've got to make it a short, quick pass. Because, sacks are different for defensive ends with these offenses now. Between the versatility of quarterbacks and between the ball getting out so quick, like we watched the Steelers do last year, you can't just pin your ears back and just run to a spot anymore against most of these quarterbacks. Now, in saying that, Myles Garrett is a special talent. He's going to get his sacks. Jadeveon Clowney, coming out of South Carolina, was everything Myles Garrett, we say, it was projected to be, right? He was this freakish athlete. I don't know how much of this plays into it. I'm not going to play smarter than the next guy, but I've always thought he's more of a 4-3 defensive end, which he'll play with the Browns, and he's basically played the 3-4 his whole career, Zach. He's been a 3-4 outside linebacker, which the priorities are a little bit different, and you have to play a little bit different. I think he's better putting his hand down and letting him get upfield like he'll do with the Browns. Look, the best thing about this signing, and this is all I'll say about it, is this. Your season doesn't depend on Jadeveon Clowney being an all-pro.
No.
No matter what happens with him, this is like cherry on top stuff. This is what happens when you're a good football team. If he plays all season, awesome. But you can still win 10, 11 games, whether Jadeveon Clowney suits up for you or not, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I think you live with yourself more if you go for it and he doesn't get hurt, right? Or he does get hurt more than if you didn't. B, in the first 6 games the Browns won last year, guys, Myles Garrett made a game-changing play in every one of them. So, what happened with COVID, what happened with the rest of the defense and how they adjusted, I don't know. We can all look at that, and especially to whatever extent his decline was COVID-related, we'll never be able to answer that. But you sit here and make this move to free him up, to lessen his load in some spots, but to free him up in some spots and let him do his thing, right? Like, that's worth taking. You're already paying Myles the big money. And I've said this all along. Like, I still have major questions about the Browns defense. However, when you have Denzel and you have Myles, that's a pretty damn good start. And you just took a guy that's a former number 1 pick that can affect games in multiple ways. And the last thing I'll say, we can talk something else. I better not hear one of you guys, talk about the preseason or how much they play. We just told you it doesn't matter. Last year there was no preseason. The Browns in the first game that counted lost 38-6. It easily could have been 70-17. They went on to have their best season in 25 years, right? There's going to be, and this goes back to the trust of Andrew Berry, of Kevin Stefanski, of the Browns for the first time in a long time. There's going to be gradual. Now you expect the learning curve, a gradual build, I should say, right? You expect the learning curve to be lessened. You expect them to play well. But guys, like, if they come out and 2 of the first 3 games are on national TV and they don't look great, the season's not over. It's not time to fire the coach. Like, Jadeveon Clowney should not get near a fucking preseason game, right?
No.
Myles Garrett should practice every second or third day when he's ready, when camp starts in July or August. Like, these stupid arguments. Like, we've arrived, and your goal, and again, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not necessarily the end of the world if something or some string of things would go wrong. And I would say the Browns have arrived at a talent level that it would take a string of things to derail their season. But they're not winning anything in August or September. And this move says we're thinking about it. And so, look, I agree. This does give some flexibility to the draft in terms of you don't need a starting defensive end, right? Maybe you can take a corner. Maybe you can take a defensive tackle. Whatever you look, but this is a 1-year rental. This is a player that comes with a certain level of risk, right? So,
well, let me ask you this: doesn't it make it easier? In my opinion, you tell me if I'm wrong, and I've read a little bit of what you've written about it. I think it makes it easier to draft either the kid from Miami that didn't play last year or has barely played and been banged up with concussions, or the kid from Penn State if he lasts that long. Like, there's so many questions with guys that sat out, did play, didn't play. To me, this makes it easier to draft those type of guys where you're saying now, if I draft, like, because I won't say any names because I'm trying to be more mature in my life. There's a lot of stupid people on the radio that talk out of their ass. But I know they're trying to fill a lot of time, and they don't know what they don't know. The great teams are great. Baltimore Ravens are who I'm thinking about right now because they can draft the 20s, late 20s, and get an impact player, right? The Browns, if they're going to sustain – yes. The Browns, if they're going to sustain this and be this, you got to find a stud. There will be a stud when they go up the draft at 11:30 on that night in Cleveland where, goddamn, I hope nobody falls in Lake Erie. But I'm damn sure knowing our people, somebody going to be in Lake Erie. I'm not wishing upon it. I just know you fools. I just think this makes it easier to take that swing. Because you can take a big swing at that number, right, Zach? You can take a swing at a guy that, like I said, maybe he's got concussion issues. Maybe he barely played last year. Maybe he barely had any sacks, but he's this freak athlete. This makes it easier because now you don't have to have all your trust in him, quote-unquote, saving you in the 2021 season. And look at the two guys he can learn from in front of him.
Yeah, I think in theory you're absolutely correct. I think the tricky thing, and no one can answer this, no one outside the building, is like the guy that you're talking about, Jalen Phillips, that has 3 concussions. I mean, I don't know in any circumstance you can take that guy in the first round. Or you might flip on the tape and say, well, how could we not take him at 26, right? But you're right. In theory, this opens you up. And in theory, having 9 picks, when you know 9 rookies aren't going to make your team, when you know you're in win-now mode, would allow you to take later that injured player that maybe has to miss his rookie year or part of his rookie year. Or that risky player, right, who's only there in the 3rd or 4th round because of something he did. It's a fascinating thing. And I think, in a way, even though it's not out front on your radio and your TV and your Twitter screen, the draft to those involved is more fascinating down there because, there's a chance when the Browns stack their board of the players that they actually love, Dre, there's a chance they're going to get their number 14 or 16 guy at number 26, right? But you always have to ask yourself, why is he there? And, I think last year, no one came out and said this, but I think last year they kind of said, look, we're not going there on a risky guy. We're going to spend on Jack Conklin, on Austin Hooper, on Case Keenum. Those guys have been around. There's no baggage in their past. There's no nothing. Jedrick Wills, he was a position projection, but he was an Alabama kid, a former 3-4 star recruit. There was no wild transfer story. There was no arrest in his past, right? So now as you get better, are you more tempted to do that? Can you really stick? I don't know. That's the human nature part of it, and that to me is what makes it more fascinating the further down you go and as you chase these championships.
They have a little bit of more cachet, though. With what they didn't know what they didn't know last year. You know what I mean? You put Barry together with Stefanski. Here, speaking of, I'm gonna give a Stefanski story. Why I tend to like him more and more as I get to know about him. Came to an Indians game this past Sunday. We were told by the Indians, and I hope I'm not talking out of turn, and I may be a little bit, but really in reality,
too late now.
If I'm sitting out of, in reality, if it's out of turn, if I'm Stefanski, I'd want this story out. So we get told, hey, Kevin Stefanski's here at the game. So we're into he's got to be in a suite, right? And we're told by the people that, that took care of it, no, he didn't want to be in a suite. He wanted to be in the stands with the fans. That's, he wanted to be out with his family in the stands. So they told us the section they were in. And I don't want to speak for our producers or directors, but when you have certain people in the stands, we pick and choose, when we're going to show them, how it plays into the game. And sometimes we know sometimes you don't show certain people because you don't want them to be crowded by fans and everything else after you show them. Some people, but we forgot to show them. I'll get to this. I'll get to that point of the story first.
Okay.
We knew he was there. I was looking. I kind of knew he was there, and because of COVID and everything else, and because I knew he didn't want to be in a suite, I didn't even think about trying to interview him. It was let the guy enjoy his Sunday, like any other dad that brings his kids to the games on a Sunday. I just thought it was really cool because there's been other coaches from that team that have shown up and wanted the orange carpet rolled out for them, and wanted to be treated like royalty. That wasn't Kevin Stefanski this past Sunday. Came to the game, wanted to enjoy the game like a normal human being. And because of that, I think we did it without even realizing it. We treated him like that. You know what I mean? Like it was like, all right, cool. If he wants to sit in the stands and we won't bother him. We'll let him enjoy the 9 innings. And I thought that was cool because, like I said, I won't mention any names here. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I got other forms to do that. He didn't do that, and I think that plays into who he is and why his players reacted so well to him in his first season as a head coach.
No, I agree. I would say one thing about this. I have had about 2.5 interactions outside of the form stuff with him, and that's just because he had the job for all of 6-8 weeks before the pandemic hit, right?
Right.
And you don't know anybody off those Zoom calls, right?
No, you don't.
And even in a normal year, you don't know anybody off standing at those press conferences either.
No, you don't.
I get the feeling, Dre, that from those small interactions, one where, he frankly invited a bunch of us writers one by one to just spend a few minutes with him and ask us about our families and, give us a chance to ask him things just about what's going on in the world, in his world, what makes him tick, rather than, who's the third outside linebacker, right? And one time I frankly ran into him on the sidewalk at one of the NFL events, and we talked for 5 or 10 minutes. I think that it is in his demeanor to where he's like, on to the next challenge, right? I think he fully understands and appreciates that he's the head coach and that he's going to be scrutinized and he's going to get a lot of praise and he's going to get a lot of shit sometimes, right? But I really think, and I think this is important too, I really think his nature is, okay, what's the next challenge? Who we got to block next, right?
Right.
Like, he won NFL Coach of the Year. Well, he's 0-0 this year like everyone else, and I really think that's important. About his counterpart and close ally, Andrew Barely, I'm asking you one thing. I think you made a great point about the door being open to taking a risk or to maybe doing something that they wouldn't have done last year or would be outside of their DNA. You get 1.5 seconds to answer this question when I ask it. You ready?
Okay.
If it comes to that, are they taking the defensive end with 3 concussions? Are they taking the defensive end with the high upside who played 1 year? Or if there's a corner from Northwestern there, are they just taking him?
They'll take the corner from Northwestern.
Yep, that's what I think too. Again, this is kind of fascinating when you think about it.
It is. Because in the past, I would be, let's hit a home run. Like, I'll admit, just from being around the sport in the game, I'd be like, because here's, shout out to our boy Scott Petrak, the Northwestern grad that'll be wearing purple all draft weekend long. In the past, I'll admit, I'd be like, go get me that DN because a DN that can be a game changer can change your team, right? I mean, you just said it. Look what Myles Garrett did for the Browns last year. I mean, they don't get off to that start without Myles Garrett. And now that you have Myles Garrett, if you could possibly get someone that has the same features that he has, man, that's wild. But knowing what I know and seeing how they do things, I say let's be cautious and take the Northwestern guy.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I know we don't have long. You're going in. So is there any indication that you're going to be back on the road with the team anytime soon? Or are we talking way down the road from now?
No, I mean, there's whispers. I mean, we got our fingers. I mean, it's hopeful. I mean, hopefully it won't be the next road trip. Hopefully by All-Star break, everybody will be vaccinated. It looks and feels like it's getting close. I mean, I'm lucky. I feel like we do a pretty decent enough job. I had somebody text me the other day midway through the game, an actual scout, a couple scouts that thought we were at the game. He was like, man, you guys are doing the game so good. I didn't even know you weren't there. It's still really hard to do baseball games.
Yeah.
Not being at the actual stadium. But it is nice to do them from Progressive Field. We're hoping, Zach, fingers crossed that everything will be the right way and we will be getting on a bird and actually going to the games because it is hard. And there's just certain shit. We had a coach from the Indians text us the other night about a play. And Matt and I had to literally tell him, we don't know because we didn't see that because we were watching off the TV.
Yeah.
And that sucks because to me it means a lot that we have coaches on the Indians coaching staff that trust our eyes or trust things that we see or, you know what I mean? That have had conversations with us in the past and they're like, hey, what does this look like? You know, that when they get back to their hotel room after a game, they're like, hey, what happened on this play? And it sucks to not be able to go back to Tito or the coaches and say, this has happened because, well, we just didn't see it because we're not there. So kudos to all the people out there that are doing these games the way we're doing them. But knock on wood, hopefully for the betterment for all of us, we'll be with the team 100% when we hopefully, like I said, by All-Star break at the latest. I will say home games have been much better because I'm back in my normal space for home games, even though they put a plexiglass between us. Doesn't stop Jose Ramirez from telling me I'm number one and speaking the way we speak to each other. So it's made home game. Well, but you know what, though? Honestly, for me, that at least means half the games we do are closer to what you guys got back in 19, 18, 17, 16, and 15. Doing them from the stands was, I'm not complaining. The 60-game season was a 60-game season. There's a lot of other people that suffered way worse. So I'm not complaining. But the job was hard. It was different. It was different for all of us. So I appreciate what we had, and the hope is that we're going to get back to having more normalcy by All-Star break, hopefully.
So along those lines, I know those of you who can attend and what will go on, I know you will show up and show out, for lack of a better phrase. But I really hope Cleveland gets another draft. And I know we've talked about this, Dre, but just the gut punch, I guess. It's probably too strong a word. I can't think of the right term. But the draft was the damn Super Bowl in Cleveland for 20 years, right? So then Cleveland gets to host it. The Browns pick 26, and there's a pandemic. So instead of 400,000 people, there's limits on everything. And, we're 2 weeks out, and there's not, announcements of things because I don't even know if they can have some of the events that they want to have. Or if they're going to have them, it's a quarter of the crowd, right? And it's all of the stuff you got to go through. So that just stinks. It is different from an anticipation standpoint. Like, the Browns have to wait till 26. They have to wait till 59. I wrote the other day, there's precedent for teams moving around from those spots. Those are usually the better teams that don't necessarily need one thing. Right. Or, as we talked about, the argument, maybe we can make a move on this guy because we didn't think we'd ever be able to get him, or we think we're ready to take on him for the upside a year from now or 2 years from now, right? So there is that interest level. I think Andrew Berry is more likely to try to roll those third and fourth round picks ahead into extra picks for the future for more maneuvering, but I don't know. Like I said, the possibility exists, as we started to talk about before. The 12th or 14th or 15th player on the Browns board will be there when they're 3 picks ahead, right? So
yeah.
Do you have a trade partner? Do you have someone willing to come down? Do you have sign-off to go get this guy? A lot of the years I spent in the draft room, there were a lot of fascinating things. There were a few ho-hum standard things, right? But one of them was these scouts work multiple years on most of these guys. On all the guys that get picked in the top 75, multiple years of work are done on them. And the work you did 2 days earlier, 2 days to 2 years earlier, can get blown up. The guy goes 1 pick in front of you, right?
That's how it works.
And obviously the chances of that increase when you don't pick till 26.
Right. But that's okay. The thing is this. They aren't that's the difference, and I think this is going to be hard for Browns fans because, we ain't used to this. They're not relying on having to draft one guy. This, to me, is a fun draft. Think about here, this is how I can make it normalize it a little bit. Think about your fantasy drafts where you already got the 2 top running backs. You have your 2 favorite, you got your favorite wide receiver, favorite running back in the first 2 rounds. And suddenly you're sitting there and a running back you have is a first-round running back. Maybe he's banged up. Maybe he's suspended. Maybe, remember we got Hunt, or was us when we got Hunt the one year he was one of our drafts. I don't know if it was a draft with you or somebody else. And it was like, Kareem Hunt's there. Maybe we'll pick him up. Maybe we won't. 2 years ago. And it was like, well, you can take that risk factor because you got a team that's already set up where you're not needing him in the first week. That's kind of where I see where the Browns are at this year. It's not like, oh, shit, we didn't get that number one. We didn't get the corner from Northwestern. We're in trouble. You know what I mean? That, to me, is the beauty of where they're at. They don't have to just freak out and have to get one player.
Yeah, and what I think is important, too, is they have 11 starters on defense. Now, realistically, you have about 16 starters on defense. Every team does, especially the good ones, right? But on offense, you have some level of expectation for Odell Beckham. You have high level of expectation for Jarvis Landry. You've come to have high level of expectation for Rashard Higgins. And Peoples-Jones sure as shit showed you enough that you have some level of expectation for him and a potential a lot. Well, realistically, the only one of those guys who's under contract past this year is Peoples-Jones. And he's done the least, right? You're a running team that's two highest salary cap guys are wide receivers. So how early is too early to draft a receiver this year?
Boy, you pushing the limits, and I love that you're doing it because you talking the truth. I'm going to say something that's not popular. I'm not going to say something that's not popular to many off of what you're going to say, and I'm going to leave it at this. If there is an elite speed receiver on the first or second day of the draft, I take him.
Let's stop short of first day. You're not taking a receiver in the first round. Come on.
Okay, maybe not the first day. I'm just simply saying this because of what you just said. You said something that's important. They are a running football team. We all know that. But here's the deal. And this is nothing against Peoples-Jones, but it is against them. I don't think they got a burner, Zach. And I think you need a burner when you can have play action the way they can have play action. A true burner with what they have offensively with this line and with how they want to play action. Peoples-Jones may turn into it. But give me a Travis. This is when you get a Travis Benjamin in the second round, per se. I'm just using that as an example. You know, a guy that can be a punt returner, a guy that that you're not expecting 80 catches from. I just want somebody who puts the fear of God. When you put him on the field, the safety has to go, oh shit. You know, keep your eye on that guy. I think with everything they have set up, and I know I've been a proponent of you keep Odell, you keep Jarvis. I got nothing against Hollywood or Maria Wood or whatever, drag racing Wood, whatever the hell his nickname is. I'm just saying, if there's the burner at the right place on that second, third day, I take him, and I don't even think twice about it.
Yeah, it certainly will be interesting. My guy is Rondale Moore from Purdue. Now, he was only 5'7". He's not going in the first round.
No.
Is he going to be there at 59? We'll see. It'd be really interesting because the right coach for Rondale Moore, the right offense for Rondale Moore.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll see. All right, guys, glad to do this again. We promise it won't be this long again before we do another one. We're getting settled into a quasi-baseball routine, and I'm getting closer to the draft. So thank you guys for listening, for tweeting, for all you do. Dre, Indians home this weekend or gone?
On the road. They're in Ohio. They're in Cincinnati. Then they come home off Monday. Then the Chicago White Sox come to town for 2 games, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. And I got something that we may be able to announce next week as well, dealing with podcasting and the Browns. It could be a really cool event that you guys are going to dig a lot about.
All right. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to American Fireworks. Thanks to Honeymoon. Thanks to Scene. Thank everybody. Enjoy the ball games. Enjoy your football team being high esteemed.
Hey, can I say something real quick? Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
That was one of the worst NCAA tournament Final Fours of my whole life.
I would say this. First of all, Brendan Haywood had the funniest tweet of all time when he said Gonzaga was like the good AAU team that hadn't seen the hood team yet. But
he ain't lying.
I do want to say
you've been telling me Baylor was great for a while,
yeah.
and I didn't see it last year, and it did take until the Final Four for me to say, holy shit, they had some athletes. They deserve it.
Listen, they play San Diego and Santa Clara all year. Everybody knows that. They didn't lose because of that. I really think they didn't see any adversity in the tournament until they got to UCLA. And I think they got so mentally and physically drained by that game that they were not able to quickly recover from Baylor's first 2 punches. And Baylor's so good, if you don't recover from their first 2 punches with one of your own, you're not going to. I mean, the game never got closer than 10. It was just over. Yeah. So,
great point.
It was good to have the NCAA tournament back. I'll tell you what's weird. You know, it's mid-April, and there's another month of the NBA season, and that is a slog. It's awful. The guys are hurt. The product sucks.
Yeah. They're not in a good place right now.
Yeah.
But we all know why they're playing. TV has made them play as many games as they've played. It's just like the All-Star game. It is what it is. I got to roll. Konnichiwa to all of you. Thank you for your patience. We will be back soon with more of the A to Z podcast. Like I said, hopefully we'll have an announcement next week of something really cool that we're going to do. And I'm going to work something else out. Maybe we'll get a player on here sooner than later. I really do have a couple guys that may be willing to do it. Because there's some great stories within the Indians that I'd like to get out and have people hear about as well, sooner than later.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Konnichiwa, Zach's microwave and my refrigerator.
Life sucks. See you soon.